Hey everyone, I'm Luke.
Is it Luke the best?
Wait, let's go back. I know what you're thinking. There's no way that's Luke. Look at how clean that grain core pad is. But it got me thinking, how do we get from this, to this, to this? I decided to ask around to see what other people thought of you as well.
What don't I think of Luke Wedel? Remember that time we were at the party and he brought all that ice? What a guy. Right?
How's this Turkish getup game?
It's more like whatever the opposite of Turkish is. I'm sure he is a good guy.
Sure, he seems like a great guy. But is he even real?
And that's just it. Everybody had positive things to say about you, but nobody could really describe what made you such a great person.
The ice? It was pretty great.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. There I was, at a loss. How is it that you had infiltrated our group of friends in such a short amount of time, but yet I had no idea how you came to be such a great person?
Hey Luke, I'm just out for a walk right now, and I got to thinking. I talked to a lot of people, and everybody knows that you're a really great guy, but not a lot of people could give me information about how you came to be such a great guy. But then I realized that your sisters are coming to Calgary, and I should just sit down and talk to them. But would that be enough? Then I thought, no, that would be crazy, right? Right? Yeah, I did. In the off chance that we've all been drinking when we're watching this, I'd figured now would be a good time to explain what the hell is going on. Yes, Luke, I went to Kansas to learn all the things about your childhood to share them with the group that we would not otherwise know. So, no, Anne, I didn't trade Luke. And that whole Edson trip, yeah, that was a lie too. What else is Christmas for than to lie to your closest friends? Am I right, Anne? Let's hope you don't get sick again this year. Just kidding. Ellie would make a great big sister. As I walked down this tunnel, I really didn't know what to expect. You don't have to be crazy to do something like this, but it sure does help. And would you believe, I was actually a little bit worried your mom wasn't going to be able to find me in the airport. I began my journey by starting at the very beginning. We'll start from the very beginning. Where was Luke conceived? I'm kidding. I meant I went to Minneapolis to talk to Luke's grandparents and visit his high school. But hey, if you're curious...
Paris.
You
Paris,
actually
France.
know?
Okay, back to the high school. That's Ryan in the picture. We'll get to him later. The first thing we did was check out the gymnasiums. I couldn't help but notice I didn't see Luke's jersey retired in the rafters. I just assumed it was probably getting clean that day. But we did see this banner of their state championship. Luke once told me that when they went to the state championship, the entire town shut down. I can't imagine what that must have been like. But unfortunately, they were just runner-up. As you can see in the picture, they looked pretty sad about it. So when I was at the school, I saw this trophy and I scratched it out. You'll always be a champion in my mind, Luke. But hey, at least you guys looked great. Speaking of great, this is their new gymnasium. Yeah, maybe you didn't catch me before. I said gymnasiums. They have 2, and this one is ridiculous. After that, we headed into the office, which, by the sounds of it, Luke is seeing the inside of for the first time in this video. Ryan and I sat down, and he shared some stories with me about Luke.
One of our sub-state games, he came down the court, got a pass at the top of the key, pulled up from 3, nothing but net. Everybody just erupted, and like 2 possessions later, he came down the court, got it at the same spot, shot it again, but it was nothing but air. So it was good though. It was a lot of fun. Luke got a breakaway, and everybody's thinking, all right, Luke's gonna get his dunk. He's gonna go up and he's gonna just jam it home. He got a step from the goal, and he slipped or something happened, and he just went down in a heap. And everybody was pretty serious there for a second. We didn't want him to be hurt or anything, and he got up and everything was fine. But it's become pretty, a fun thing that we've always remembered.
I'm with you, Luke. We all can't be superstar athletes like your mom. Speaking of which, Sandy, when you took this shot, did you ever think that it would be featured in a documentary about your son? Life's crazy. After the visit at the high school, I headed over to Luke's grandmother's place to see what stories she had to share. Luke is one of 22 grandchildren that she is grandmother to. Of course, I asked the obvious question right away.
Is Luke your favorite grandkid? Nobody else is going to see this, I promise. It'll stay between you and I.
Well, of course he is.
Okay, hold it there. Any other grandkids watching this, I just want you to know that is all video editing. She didn't actually answer it that way. Plus, I'd like to be invited back to Kansas sometime.
I don't know how old he was, probably around junior high age, maybe. His dad, Alan, had a lot of cousins and things that came down from Nebraska, and they'd always go fishing out south of town on the river and set bank lines. And one year in particular, they caught some humongous fish and stuff, some catfish and flatheads. And Luke, anyway, he was at our house, and he was holding up one, and it was almost as big as he was at that time. So I have no idea. The fish had to weigh, 50, 60 pounds, someplace in there. So it was a huge fish and stuff. And of course, he was very excited. And then when he was in high school, he was going to school here in Minneapolis, to high school. And the football games, he was kind of a cheerleader.
I was actually just at the high school, and I've heard about this.
Right. And it was always my favorite thing. And every time Minneapolis made a touchdown, Luke had this flag, and he'd run up and down in front of the bleachers, with this flag. And of course, then they always shot fireworks off too at the south end of the field when Minneapolis made a touchdown. So anyway, I just always really enjoyed that. And so I'm sure Luke did too.
After this, I drove over to Luke's other grandparents' house. Yes, I drove, because I'm an idiot. The first thing that Luke's grandmother Kathleen did was give me a tour of their beautiful home, including this piano that Luke used to play. Foreshadowing? On this side of the family, Luke is one of 11 grandchildren, so of course, I asked who the favorite was.
He was number one because he was the first male grandson, so he had to be number one.
Luke, I'm going to give it to you on a technicality. Before we sat down to talk, she showed me this peacock that Luke shot, and will soon be in Anne and Luke's home. After this, we sat down and talked about Luke's time living in this house.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Luke lived here for a bit, is that correct?
Yes, for the last 2.5 years of high school. He came and lived here to go to a smaller school and had more opportunity with his, skills? not just basketball, but otherwise. I'll show you some picture or two.
I know. What could those pictures be? Actually, it was just an adorable picture of Luke with Santa and his grad photo. Yeah, that's the only thing she could have meant by that comment. I can't think of any other photos that she might have. I then did some touring around Minneapolis and went looking for a snack. Luke's mom recommended Daylight Donuts, but unfortunately, it was closed.
Oh!
So instead, I had to settle for Casey's.
Pretty good. You're really good. Thank you, Casey's.
With some time to kill, I decided to head over to the Minneapolis Museum. It's the home of the George Washington Carver exhibit. And for you non-history buffs out there, that's this guy, not this guy. The museum was quite intensive, and I got myself a little bit of a tour.
After he was freed, he came here to finish his education. He went to grade school just a couple blocks down the road, and he went to the church that was a couple blocks down the road also. But like I said, he left and he never came back.
Sort of like Luke?
Kind of, I guess.
I did some driving around while I waited for Luke's mom, and then something hilarious happened.
I'm ready when you are. That was 11:36.
So Anne's going to be really confused as to why she's getting this message.
I'm ready when you are.
It was supposed to go to me.
Yes, Anne, that message that was sent to you in error was actually supposed to go to me. Just so much lying in this whole thing. Isn't Christmas great? After that, we headed over to Sharon Comfort's house. This is where Luke learned to ride horses. The first thing I did was make a total ass out of myself.
Luke, I literally just clotheslined myself on a clothesline. That's a clothesline, right? Oh, wow. Pay attention, Jordan.
This is where Luke initially first learned to ride. I actually didn't even know Luke rode horses. I asked what kind of rider he was.
Initially, he was not. He was kind of clumsy, but he really got the hang of it and did very well. This is Luke's saddle. Long-legged. So he outgrew this, actually the length of the legs, pretty quickly. When he first started riding, he wanted a horse so bad. I had a horse that he was riding, but he really wanted a horse. So he saved his mowing money or chore money, whatever he did, because Alan and Sandy weren't going to buy it. They wanted him to be responsible, which is really amazing. But anyway, so he saved all that money to get a horse, and its name was Robin. And Robin was a smaller, I think Luke was maybe 9. And so he was, the horse was probably 14.2, 14.3 in height. And Luke initially, it was a good fit. Well, then he kept growing and growing, and then Robin was way too short, and Luke was too heavy, and so they got rid of Robin, and then he got a horse named Sonny. But anyway, he saved his money and bought his very own first horse, which is pretty amazing.
After showing me Luke's saddle, she brought me over to the creek where Luke fell in one day.
And the rocks, and Luke slipped on the log and fell in the water. This is such muddy, stinky water. And then he came back up. Thankfully, it was a little bit warmer that day, or quite a bit warmer. And so he comes up dripping, and we had to get towels and stuff. But it was just, we were dying laughing.
Then we went back into the barn, and she started telling this crazy story.
It is through the school, and they have outfits. All the boys wear an outfit, all the girls wear an outfit. And it's all dressed up, almost like tuxedo dressed up.
What is she talking about?
He was in a singing and dancing group. It's called New Image. It was called New Image. It was kind of like a show choir.
He was in drama. He was in New Image, which was a select singing group.
Oh yes, Luke. I'm 3 people in, and you thought everyone was just going to gloss over your dancing, singing, and acting skills? Oh no, I dedicated a special section to this.
If we look at his
his drama skills between singing, dancing, acting. Was he a triple threat? What was his best skill? Why would I even ask that question when, if this goes how I think it's going to go, we've already had a few drinks, there's a microphone behind you, and a piano by the door? Let's find out. Next, we headed over to the Carlsons, who Luke used to work for.
After harvest, we always have a big water fight, and so that's just part of our tradition, I guess. And so the last day of harvest, yeah.
I've heard about this water fight.
And he participated, and he had lots of fun, yes.
So what weapons are in the water fight? What do you
Well, we
use?
have the garden hose and water balloons and
I've heard Luke
buckets of water, and
he's been a targeted person in these water fight attacks.
yes, he has. He has. Yep. Well, he's so tall that and
He kind of brings it on himself.
We then headed over to the family cabin, which at one time was an active crime scene. And no, not because the family antler trophies were once stolen from this location, but rather, in an attempt to cover up Luke and his friends drinking, he drove across 2 county lines to drop off beer can empties. Unfortunately, one was left in the couch. Where you stuffed that beer can that you didn't get rid of? Is this how you got caught? Right here? Is this where it happened? By the way, your mom knows about that now. After the family cabin, we headed over to the farmhouse, which is currently undergoing a very impressive renovation. Speaking of renovations, at one point in Luke's younger years, he had to manually smash out all the concrete from this basement area. Now you can't really see it in the picture, but this ceiling is about barely 6 feet high. It was a squeeze for me. He had to do that on his hands and knees without even having the leverage to stand up and hammer down. It's a real character builder. It's that kind of work ethic in life that gets you to a point where you can write this on your board. Luke, your family and ice makers, it's amazing. Must be a Kansas thing. After all that traveling around, Luke's mom and I headed back into town to go to their family's favorite Mexican restaurant, which they would go to every Wednesday night. As they say, the best Mexican is the stuff you grew up on. And the most fun Mexican is the place you end up on Jordan's 30th birthday with Teeter. We spent the rest of the afternoon at their house.
This is the suit he wore. The whole time he didn't know he was supposed to take that off. He wore that on his jacket the whole year.
Did they win?
I think he got second in state.
Do you think he would have got first if he took that off?
I don't know. He might have if he hadn't worn that on the jacket.
Luke, when we first met at Tyler Marines, did you ever think to yourself, I bet this guy 2 years from now is going to be standing in my childhood closet with my mom? Well, there I am. Life's crazy. Luke's mom was kind enough to make me Luke's favorite dish for supper, after which the three of us sat down and I wasted no time getting straight to brass tacks. Okay, so what we're going to start with is I'm just going to show you some words and you tell me how you'd say them. Now, considering I've already spent a night in your home, this might be a little bit late in the game to be asking this, but is it Wedel or is it Wedel?
Wedel.
Okay. Now, am I in Salina or am I in Salina?
You're in Salina.
Salina.
Okay. Now, this next word, I just want you to read it just as you would say it.
Measure.
Measure.
You hear that, Luke? Next one, read it exactly as you would read it.
Chimpanzee.
Chimpanzee.
Chimpanzee. Chimpanzee.
Okay.
Chimpanzee.
Okay.
Probably chimpanzee. Maybe chimpanzee. I don't know.
That was for you, Ann. Okay. These next two, very important. This is...
Kansas.
And this one is...
Arkansas.
So I am confusion. Why is this one Kansas, but this one is not Arkansas? America, explain. Explain. What do you mean in Arkansas?
How concerned should I be about a tornado taking me away to the land of Oz tonight?
No chance tonight.
Tomorrow night?
No chance tomorrow night.
Because when I pulled up to your house, I noticed you legitimately have a brick road leading to your house. What the fuck? And I noticed that you guys have an ice maker over there. Did you get that as soon as Luke moved out?
No, we've had that ice maker for a long time.
So you've had that ice maker.
It predated Luke move out.
And
are you going to tell me you also have in-suite washer and dryer here?
yes.
And have had it the whole time?
Yes.
We don't have a wash house out back. No. I have just one little funny story to tell. I'm an artist and I had an art studio, and I had my studio partner taught art classes. So when Luke was in kindergarten or first grade, I signed him up to go down to the studio and take art classes. And on the way down to the first class, he said, "Mom, why did you sign me up for art classes?" And I said, And he had this kind of look on his face, and I thought, because I'm an artist? And he goes, "It's okay, Mom, you can tell me." And I said, "Is it because Sarah's a good friend of mine, and I think you really enjoy it, and I think art is important?" And he said, "Oh, you can tell me. Come on, you can tell me." And I said, "Well, why do you think I signed you up for art classes?" And he said, "Because you know I'm a great artist." So everything was always roses for Luke. Yeah. He was always very positive, and
I could have made an entire documentary about this conversation alone, but I have to move on for 3 reasons. 1, my foot's decided to make another guest appearance. Fuck. 2, we're only 2/3 done this thing. And 3, I gotta talk to Luke's sisters tonight. Fortunately for me, both of Luke's sisters happen to be in Salina. Yes, this was definitely shot in Salina. And so, this is definitely not being recorded in their house right now.
No.
Definitely
We've never
not.
been to Calgary. I remember we went to Cheyenne Days. Which is this like rodeo, yes, in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And it's this rodeo meets Native American powwow thing that happens. And we were on this epic family vacation, which we did a couple times, like RV style. And we went to Cheyenne Days, and I don't remember how it happened, but somehow my mom and Luke must have gone off, and when we came back, he had these 2 indigenous weapons that he proceeded to bring home. Like,
can you define an indigenous weapon?
And one was like a mallet. It was like a stick with a huge rock tied to the end.
With leather wrapped.
Tying the stick to the rock.
How old was he at this time?
And in my mind, hardly old enough to wield the weapon.
When you found out Luke was moving to Canada, what was your thoughts?
I was happy for him.
Yeah.
His job was kind of letting him kind of go on new adventures, and he was always into that. I felt like he wasn't afraid to go try something new. So I always looked up to him, I think, in that regard a little bit.
Yeah, he was just doing it.
I look up to him because he's way taller than me.
I love saying
too.
my favorite thing to say is call him my little brother.
Yeah, right.
And then reference that he's 6'8" tall.
Luke, skill testing question. What vehicle am I sitting in right now? Here, I'll give you a hint.
In order to graduate from 6th grade at Meadowlark Ridge Elementary, he must have called it a Porsche.
Yes, this is Mr. Pearson, right beside his Porsche. And that book he's holding, that's from 1997 and includes all of Luke's grades. It was incredible.
I found this last night in my basement, and I can tell you his sordid past in 6th grade. As it appears in this document here, this sacred document. Pick any subject you'd like, and I can tell you how he did week by week.
Pretty good grades, Luke. After Mr. Pearson, we quickly touched base with Luke's friend, Ryan Bradshaw.
So Luke and I met when I went to Medlark in Meadowlark Ridge Elementary School, 3rd grade. And so I've known Luke since then. We played basketball, baseball, sports together. We used to.
Who was better at sports?
It depends on the sport, man. Honestly, Luke was a big, tall basketball player, and so we used to play a lot of 21. And Luke was just bigger, better, stronger than the rest of us were. Baseball, Luke was kind of a DH type, played outfield. He was a spurty hitter. He would hit for power, but then you wouldn't see Luke on base for like the next 3 months. And we used to play paintball together occasionally. So my mom's house, we used to have these chemical barrels, 55-gallon chemical barrels, and we'd set them up, and Luke would come out. And when you're younger, that was kind of the ticket. Like, how good can you be at paintball? Can we be professional paintball players? Stuff like that. And so Luke and I used to talk about it all the time. Like getting doom buggies and decking them out in paintball gear and like full-on combat mode stuff, and it was kind of cool.
The last people I saw today were Luke's old babysitters.
I did daycare.
Yeah. And I met...
And he was 2.
Yeah, a little younger than 2. I was in 6th grade when I started taking care of Luke. It was through Mom. Mom had him sometimes during the day and stuff, and then in the evenings I would take care of the kids and take care of Luke and spend the night here. Even like when Alan and Sandy would go out of town, like to Mexico and stuff, I'd stay here for like a week or 2 and get the kids to school back and forth. So
let's stop right there, because you're about to see a camera shift. That's because during this shooting, Luke and Ann FaceTimed Luke's parents and chaos ensued. But this does give me the opportunity to highlight Malin. She's a young lady on the far right of this picture. Her reaction summarizes what we are all feeling when we hear this story.
For me, I would say I've known him so long that I had changed his diapers.
Oh.
So, and I know there was particular times when he would pee in my face, so that has happened before. So sorry, Luke, but yeah. I also remember one time when he spent the night at our house at Mom and Dad's.
And he peed on the nightstand.
Yes, he was getting up in the middle of the night and thought that he was in the bathroom, and we woke up to him standing in front of the nightstand. And we were like, Luke! And he was like, oh, and woke up, like kind of sleeping. So that was like a little funny moment.
Remember this shot from earlier? Well, little did I know that this was the most happening place in Minneapolis on a Friday night. This is actually Luke's grandfather, Kerm, grilling steaks in the back. You may remember him from before. He's actually the mayor of Minneapolis. Together, him and Luke's grandma have run this restaurant for over 20 years, open only on Friday nights. Oh, and pro tip, don't try to seat yourself, and if you don't have a reservation, don't even bother. Oh, and this lady? This is the mother of the girl Luke took to prom. She just sat down and started talking to us. What are the odds of us running into her? In a town of 1,200, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Vic was saying how much he loved Kathleen's banana cream pie.
Okay.
He leaves immediately.
Luke did.
And goes to Kathleen's and brings back a banana cream pie that had one
adorable.
piece, 1 or 2 pieces out of it, and I don't think Kathleen had a clue.
And I know that was really tough to watch and you have to be getting jealous right now, but don't worry. Coincidentally, me and Luke's grandma talked about this earlier in the day. And the girl that he took to the prom, not nearly as good as Anne, correct?
Oh yeah, right.
Who is?
Nobody is as good as Anne.
The next morning I headed east to first visit Lawrence and the University of Kansas. This is where Luke went to college. Once I got there, the first thing I did was got something to eat at no other than The Wheel. This is where Luke used to work. I wasn't sure what kind of employee he was, but fortunately...
Hey Luke, Rob Farha here. I'm sorry, Nobby to you. Can't believe you have friends that would do this for you. For your friends up there north of the border, was he a good employee? She can take the Fifth Amendment on that. I'm not going to answer.
I got the famous Wang burger, but I got the sense that nobody in the bar much appreciated my passive-aggressive gray sweater on campus, so they sent me on my way.
This hill is atrocious. I thought Kansas was flat. What would this be like if you were just drunk one night? Jeez.
And I got it fixed. After this, I headed over to Luke's old fraternity, Phi Delta Theta. They gave me a tour of the house, and then I sat down with the president and vice president.
Do you guys have any traditions or rituals that people in Canada and this group of friends would want to know about?
We can't really reveal them to anyone who's not a Phi Delta, but I don't know if any of them would be very Canadian, but...
Okay, thanks for playing along, kids. My last stop at the University of Kansas was to check out Allen Fieldhouse, where Luke's beloved Jayhawks play. Unfortunately, I could not see the court, and nobody was there to let me in. But then some random bystander told me I was living in a country of free will and I should do what felt right. So I snuck in. But the coolest part was that they have a memorial to the Canadian who invented basketball and a replica of the rules. That is so cool. My final stop on the journey was to head to Kansas City to see Luke's favorite teams play.
Doing it 82 miles per hour. I'm a criminal.
We're not in Kansas anymore. I'm just kidding. It's like right back there. We just crossed the state line.
But this isn't a documentary about how much fun I had in Kansas City, though I am glad both teams won so that your Grandpa Kerm will let me back in the state. This is a documentary about this guy.
A very fine student, very conscientious.
I just always remember Luke being this good kid and was always trying, and whatever he did, he was always practicing.
I remember Luke as always being funny and smiling and happy.
Luke walked in, all the little kids, boys and girls, Luke, they were running up to him and they all loved him. It was the sweetest thing.
Always smiling. With a lot of energy.
Always.
And he was always so sweet. Like, I feel like he was so nice to people in general and us.
From the day he was born with a smile. And I used to hold him and give him his bottle, and I'd have to turn away because if I looked at him, he'd quit drinking and smile.
He just was kind and considerate and thought of others. He was selfless. He never got in trouble at school. He always got high praise from teachers at conferences.
Merry Christmas, Luke, man. We got you, bro.
Merry Christmas, Luke. Go Jayhawks.
Rock Chalk.
Hi, Luke. We're here with your friend Jordan at the Sprint Center. Merry Christmas. I hope you love his birthday or his Christmas present. Go KU.
We've been drinking, Luke.
Yeah.
We've been drinking.
Merry Christmas, Luke. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Merry Christmas, Luke.
Give a Merry Christmas and don't be a stranger and stop by.
Merry Christmas,
Luke.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Luke. I miss you and can't wait to see your baby.
Merry Christmas, Luke, wherever you are.
Hey, Luke.
Merry Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, Luke, and we miss you. Stop and see us sometime after Christmas and have a Happy New Year.
I think your friends are taking good care of you, Luke. I'd like you to be surprised.
Merry Christmas, Luke. Hope all is well.
Luke, man, miss you, bro. I haven't seen you forever. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Luke. I love you, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Luke. And Anne.
Merry Christmas, Luke. Have a good one.
Merry Christmas, Luke.
Feliz Navidad.
Luke, missing you all. Wishing you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Luke.
Merry Christmas.
We miss you.
Hey, Luke. Merry fucking Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Luke.
Merry Christmas, Luke.
And Ann too. And Ellie.
And Ellie. And all of your friends.
Luke, Merry Christmas. I had a ton of fun putting this all together. Special thanks to your parents, grandparents, sisters, and family friends for helping to make this happen. I initially went to Kansas to learn about your childhood and figure out what kind of place made you who you are. But after meeting all these people, it became clear that it had nothing to do with where you were and where you grew up, but rather the people you surrounded yourself by. We're all happy to be those people today and are happy that you have come to call Calgary home. After all, I believe it was you who once said that no matter where you go, you just have to buy into it.
Like, no matter where you go, you just have to buy into being there. There's good people just about anywhere, but sometimes you got to go out and find them.